life is busy for everyone and we can all find a multitude of ways to fill our days, but at some point we're going to reflect back on the moments that get lost. And when you're living with someone with dementia, you see that loss every single day. But regardless of that, you know, our elders in our families, their time is limited, and whatever we can do to make space and make time to include them in what we're doing and to make them an ever-present part of our story, we're going to take something away from that. Our kids are going to take something away from that as well.
Hello and welcome to Separate Bathrooms. I'm Daddo.
Oh, and I'm Daddo.
Come on, coffee girl. Come on, stay with me.
No coffee for me, kind sir. It's all pumping through your system.
All right, well, let's get this part of it right. We would like to acknowledge the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land, and pay our respects to the elders, both past and present. Welcome to Separate Bathrooms.
Indeed. In the bathroom today, Megan and Jason Van Genderen. They have quite the story to tell. Now, Megan's a nutritionist and Jason's a filmmaker, and together they have got 4 kids.
About 7 years or so ago, after the death of Jason's father, they decided to move Jason's mum into the house with them. Puck, as his beloved mum is called, also had Alzheimer's, and through the journey of her declining health, Jason filmed her and their life together and has now created a documentary together with Megan called Everybody's Oma.
So let's talk to this couple not only about the film, but everything that went along with it. Please welcome Megan and Jason to the bathroom.
Well, welcome Megan and Jason to the bathroom.
Hey,
guys,
thank you for having us.
Looking good. Congratulations, firstly, on the movie Everybody's Oma. I mean, it's fabulous on a multitude of levels, and we'll dive into that. First of all, we want to get to know you two first. So, how did you meet?
Oh, well, it was just over there, actually, wasn't it? It was I was working for a charity at the time, and we were at a work function celebrating the 150 years of this particular charity. And
150-year-old charity?
Yeah.
What was that?
Mission Australia.
Oh, okay. I was going to say it had to be Red Cross or something like that. Yeah.
And, we sort of got pushed together during the evening somehow, and then...
Well, I shot a video for the night.
Yeah.
So I created some celebratory video for the function, and then I was freshly divorced, and we kind of got thrust together in this space of... Here's this newly divorced guy, and here's all the single girls at Mission Australia. And it was just a weird kind of a night. But yeah, it was good fun in the end, and we kind of hit it off right from the get-go.
Yeah, we did. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there was it was a drunken pash, and no numbers were exchanged, and and it was back like in the early mid 2000s where. Like, I didn't have internet at home and I didn't have an internet phone, so we had to email during work hours. And I couldn't
believe this girl had no email address. It was like,
that's a bit.
No, because I moved out and didn't have internet.
Secretive,
It's fashioned. I love it.
Yeah.
No dating apps, nothing.
No, none of that. So, we had to have like a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday kind of relationship for a little while.
You're kind of easing yourselves into it.
Yeah. I was just making sure he was really interested, so...
And what was the attraction for you, Megan, about Jason?
It was the kindness. Growing up in Sydney and Northern Beaches, just a lot of footy heads, and he was just so kind and different and creative, and it wasn't the kind of guy that I'd ever come across before, and it was really special and exciting and real. And that's, I really fell in love with the kindness.
How about you, Jason? What was your attraction to Megan?
Megan's just gorgeous. I was going to say was gorgeous, is gorgeous, still gorgeous. And I think you just have a selflessness about you, which is just really attractive. You're really interested in people, and you're very gregarious and fun, and you were just the right thing that I was looking for. Wow, it's like matchmaking.
Megan, had you been previously married like Jason?
No, very single prior to that. Yeah. And then when we did hook up, it took us a little while to sort of hook up and decide we really, really liked each other. And then... Well,
you disappeared to Ethiopia for a year, I might add. We had just started dating.
Secret that I was going to volunteer in Africa
for
a year.
Wow.
You just form a relationship, and then your partner says, hey, I'm going to go to Ethiopia. I'm going to work in Addis. for a year.
But you would have known that when you no, it was a surprise.
It was just as we were hooking up.
Dropped that one on me.
So you did actually do that for a year. And what, were you just pining for her the whole time?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
You didn't head over there to...
I did.
Yeah.
I did once. Yeah. So we spent 2 weeks together over there.
In Addis, and then you popped over again.
To propose.
So tell us
not in
about
Addis,
that.
though. That was...
Yeah.
How did that go? So that was inside of a year then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us,
we
take us
had a
through that.
European trip as a bit of a break for these two lovesick puppies. And I had been trying to... You know when you're going to propose and you have this picture in your head of how you're going to do it and where you're going to do it. And we were in Venice and it was like, yes, this is obviously the city we're going to do it in. And then I had this like... this mock dummy ring in my pocket with me wherever we're going. It wasn't the actual ring just yet because that was being made.
It was like the top of a Fizz Whiz.
Yeah, pretty much. It was something out of one of those vending machines things.
Yeah, right.
And I still remember, and I was filming when I was about to go in and propose to you. And I think the first time we had lunch somewhere.
We'd ordered a
we had a dinner date. We had a fake first-time dinner date. Have you done one of those where you pretend you don't know each other? You're in a foreign city.
Oh, I've seen it done in movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of like that. But we agreed that we would meet at a particular restaurant at night as strangers and pretend that we were meeting each other again. And I was going to propose then.
Which is
so we
really
picked this
difficult to
amazing
do
place.
in Venice too, because of the, it's hard to navigate in Venice.
Yeah. And we were staying in the same hotel, which again, but still, it was the play thing of the just doing the stupid little thing.
I'm totally on board with
Me
this.
too. I
It's
love
good
this.
fun.
We might have to do this in the next couple of weeks.
I recommend it. And then we rocked up. So we did. We got ready separately, and then we rocked up at this little bolt hole kind of
restaurant.
Was it a
little restaurant.
Yes, this little Italian restaurant thing, and then we sat down. I already ordered the champagne, the fancy champagne, and it came in a bucket. And then
they said, "You've got 10 minutes to order. We're closing."
So
fast forward.
Ideal proposal just went out the window, packed it away again. We went, and so that failed. And then the next day, I was going to do it during lunch because it started raining where we were. So I was going to do it. We had a lunchtime meal somewhere, and I went in the bathroom to do it, and then I came out, and then there was no one in the restaurant. So it was like just the two of us. There was people there when I went in the bathroom. When I came out, it was empty. It's like, this feels weird. It's just cavernous, this space. So we didn't do it there. So then eventually we went on a gondola ride, didn't we?
Yeah.
And you did it on
no one would have expected, right?
But that's so romantic. I love it.
in a weird way.
That is.
But I hadn't
actually
realised
very,
he tried to do this like 3 times already.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I think that's good that you didn't know. So
Yeah.
it did become it.
It was.
Came as a surprise. So, that's lovely. I love that. What a great story.
You'd recommend this pretending that you don't know each other thing?
Yeah, Cam,
Yes,
Cam's hooked on
fantasy.
this now.
Yeah. It's like a first date night all over again. Yeah.
Have you kept that going throughout your marriage? Is that something that you still do? Keep the playfulness alive?
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially since having our own kids as well.
Yeah.
Having 2 sort of under 10s, you definitely have more opportunity. You're reminded a lot more to be really playful as well, because you can get really boring and just, do your 9 to 5 and
Oh, who wants to adult all the time?
yeah, it's super
I
boring.
like that. Okay.
Yeah. So no, we do. We definitely do.
Jason, your parents are clearly and were so special to you. Are you an only child?
No. I've got an older sister as well.
Older sister.
Yeah.
Okay. How did your parents raise you? Because, we're going to jump in and start talking about the documentary that you made, but how did they raise you in such a way that the care that you wanted to give your mum was so complete? So what did they give to you as a child?
I think, Ellie, I was always really attached to family and to my parents because even though I was born in Australia, I moved over with my parents back to the Netherlands when I was very young. So when I was 3, we moved back over there, stayed there for almost 4 years. So I think I grew really attached to that sense of family because when you're moving at such a young age, you need your family to really guide you in that new environment. And my parents were the quintessential European parents, and being Dutch, very, very driven, very stubborn. My dad was super stoic, very creative in his own way. He was an incredible artist and sculptor in his own right. My mother was just the quintessential, family carer. She was the nurturer. She was the person you would run to when anything was uncertain. You always found safety with her. So I remember that. I still remember, her flashbacks to remembering being like 12 or 13 here in Australia and going to cross the road in Morisset where we used to live. And I'd still reach out for my mum's hand as a safety thing. It was really weird, but I didn't feel awkward about it. It just felt like something you instinctively did.
Right.
So we had that kind of closeness. And, when we lost my dad to cancer, we maintained that real close relationship with my mum. She still lived independently in her own place, this beautiful little A-frame house. But, that became tougher and she became more lonely. She was quite a gregarious person. And, it started, we started asking some questions once we had her diagnosis of Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. We could tell there was something not quite right.
Yeah.
A few years after my dad had passed, and she managed quite well up until a point. And then it came a point where we realised this wasn't going to work out. Her being on her own, we needed to think more holistically about us as a family and her part within that and our part within that and how we were going to approach the coming years.
The film is called Everybody's Oma. At what point did you guys, I'm sure it was a collective decision, what point did you decide to start shooting, making it as and collecting video records?
I'm going to let Megan answer this one because everyone always, I'm a filmmaker, I guess, by nature, but Megan sort of observes this from a different way.
Well, you've always been filming everything for a long time. So your background previously is in advertising. Your parents used to feature a lot in all of your Henny Penny ads.
Oh, you're one of those kids who made films.
Regional advertising, so your parents are always the talent.
Yeah, free talent.
Good for them, good sports.
So they were always used to having the camera in front of them. And for you creatively, you really need to be understanding your world through, the things that you capture as well. And that's kind of how you fill your cup a lot of the time. So you've always been filming everybody a lot. And I think when Oma moved in, that kind of never changed. It was always kind of around. And then I
started really documenting intently when my dad was sick with his cancer diagnosis because I felt his time was limited. And I thought, for the future grandchildren he's not going to be able to meet, how would I paint a picture of him and what sort of stories do I have to tell about him other than just, in conversation. So I started really documenting intently then without realising while I was documenting my father, I was documenting my mother at the same time, pre-dementia. So, that was kind of always on the cards. We always sort of whip out the phone and start capturing most family events and, who would have known all those years down the track how handy that footage would
Absolutely.
come. Yeah. And then I guess sorry.
I was going to say, at what point did you decide, okay, we need mum in the house with us? And was that also a family decision? Had you had the little one by then?
We'd had Artie by then, he was about 2.
Okay, so you didn't even have your second Evie yet.
No, we didn't have Evie yet. Yeah. And we had Levi, your younger son, he was living with us full time at that stage as well. So we kind of knew we were going to have another baby, so we were growing out of the house that we were currently in.
Right.
And then we knew that Oma was kind of heading south as well, and that she needed, for her well-being, she needed people around her all the time. And it wasn't really I think because we didn't know a lot about dementia, it was just a no-brainer. We kind of just went, let's just do it.
I recall it was almost a bit of a throwaway comment during lunch one day. We went to it. She had a favourite little thing that we'd do on a Friday. We'd go to Wanji Workers Club on the shores of Lake Macquarie. We'd have a lunch. She'd have a little slap on the pokies. She loved that. And I was sitting down having lunch there with a family friend one day who said, why don't you move in with this lot one time when she was talking about being lonely? And she said, oh, yeah, I'd love that. And I think that really floored us because we were thinking, your parents are always going to resist that idea of leaving the family home and having to move in with someone else and lose, I guess, that side of their independence.
Because she's very stubborn. She's a very European, stubborn, stoic, strong woman. So we were surprised and so we just went, okay, well, let's just go for it, and we did. We did that in 2017, didn't we?
Looked for a new home, big enough for all of us, with a granny flat attached to the house and found it. And, the rest sort of just became the story.
I love that Oma calls you Megan when she says you're my favourite daughter-in-law.
I love that too.
So what was your relationship like with her?
It was beautiful because she's just so she was magnetic. Like she just brought you in. So she was just a pleasure to be around. And even as her dementia progressed, she was always a very happy and placid person. Like there was definitely moments of anxiety when she would get upset because of the dementia and things like that. But she could just draw you in. And it was just so authentic, and she was beyond kind, and that's where you get it from too. Like she was beyond kind. She could do anything for you, and she'd want to do things for you, and so that's why you just wanted to look after her. And like we had carers come to the house on part of a package, and if ever there was a new carer that would come in, they would come into our house and just say, "Oh my God, this woman is just," and they'd be in tears just saying how lovely their 1 hour of shopping was with her. Like. She was just...
And she'd always be wanting to give them, like, the grandfather clock or something from the house as a little thank you.
Nobody goes home empty-handed.
Correct. Everyone wins a block of chocolate.
She was...
Which she clearly enjoyed when you set her up in the had a Cadbury's Dairy Milk in the drawer.
You know what?
I mean, your kindness too is, I think, is equal to your husband's because, I mean, what you took on as a partner... It could easily have gone very pear-shaped. I think there's only, from what I could see, there was only one part that you documented in the film where things did get tense between you two, and it was like, I mean, total stalemate. I got it. I'm standing in front of the fridge.
Yeah.
That scene.
The dog and the cat one.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny, Cam. I've often sort of expressed this to people that being a carer for anyone is a real it's a quest of love, and it's sometimes a very thankless task. Other times it's overwhelmingly rewarding and beautiful. But a lot of the times we end up being carers for blood relatives, for people we're directly connected to. It's another ask when you become a carer for an in-law. It's a very different ask. Yeah. And you're right, it takes a certain strength of character and a generosity of spirit to be able to step into that as warmly as what you did, Megs, and to give so much of yourself into caring for essentially your mother-in-law. But, I think that inspired me. I hadn't assumed any kind of a real carer role. I was still running off doing my production work, my day-to-day, and you were really doing the day-to-day care work with Oma. And it wasn't until things started getting tough that the switch flicked in me, and I thought, that's not the right thing. That's not the ask of your partner. That shouldn't be their responsibility to take that whole in solely on their shoulders. So that's where sort of we I guess we crossed our paths again and became co-carers of Oma, and learnt as much about each other as what we did about her and family life in general in going down that pathway.
Yeah, and you add, the all-important being pregnant, having a baby.
Yeah.
I mean, that alone, and having a little one, you're having a son already. I mean, that alone is an enormous caregiving experience. And then you add...
And a stepmom on top of
And the stepmom, that's right.
Yeah, and also
and
you
the dog,
two.
And the dog and the cat.
Yeah. And you two keeping your relationship together.
Yeah, that's an enormous juggle.
Yeah.
Enormous juggle. So, that really... that came through a lot to me. Like I was relating enormously to you, Megan, in that, in how you handled and continue to handle all of what you've done. But then, you talk about I spent a year in Ethiopia on a charity. Well, clearly this is your personality. This is who you are intrinsically. So, yeah.
I think when you've got a really solid team though, like I feel like we just have this really solid foundation that just doesn't penetrate. Like, and maybe that dog and the cat seed, there was a bit of it was knocking, but yeah, because we have just this really solid foundation, I think knowing that that's there just kind of makes it easier to navigate, or you just kind of navigate.
Yeah,
somehow.
It's all communication, really, isn't it? I mean, The times we have stresses in our relationship is when we stop talking, or we conceal, conversation that feels difficult. And as soon as we do that, that's when things become really hard. But when we keep talking, even if we don't agree about something, as you'll see in the film, there's that moment you referred to in the kitchen when we film an argument we're having. And everyone always thinks I filmed that argument. I didn't. Megan filmed that one. So I was really proud of her that she picked up the camera and felt like she had a confident win position entering into this argument where we're having a stupid conversation about looking after the cat and the dog, But really, when we look back at that little scene in the film, it's us really talking about how far we're willing to stretch love for family. We're talking about Oma, but in a different way. We're kind of positioning her in a family pet and trying to work out what's going to break. And, but again, we have those conversations. We didn't always agree on things, but just having the conversation opened the doorway. Yeah.
Well, speaking of communication, you guys, just in the 20 minutes that we've already spent together, you guys clearly know how to communicate, and you communicate beautifully, from what I can see. Did you get help? Does anyone we had therapy or anything like that, getting to learn how to speak to each other in such a beautiful, kind way?
No, I don't think so. Have we? No. Oh, no,
we had some couples counselling a couple of years ago with some friends of ours, which was really beneficial.
Which led to Artie being born too, which was really
not that night, but it was a
no. We had it was like an interrelationship counselling thing, so it wasn't like you were in crisis, but this is how to
preventative type counselling, which I recommend for anyone. I think it was great.
That's right. That was back in 2014 or something. Yeah.
And it comes through very clearly the way you talk, particularly to Artie, about Oma, and you're very matter of fact with him, yet you're really clear so he knows what's going on. Is that something that you really knew you wanted to do as a parent as well, as to be really clear about that?
I think kids take that kind of information better when it is just crisp and clear. I think as adults we tend to layer a conversation or a topic with complexities, our own complexities, and
probably some protection in there.
A lot of protection.
Or hide.
A lot of protection,
too much hiding of what's actually going on.
And normally we're fearful, right, because we're not quite sure of how the other person's taking that information and what they're going to do with it. But I think the beautiful thing with kids is they're so beautifully unfiltered and open. And certainly we learnt so much from watching both Artie and Evie grow up through the journey we went on with Mum, with Oma, and just this spontaneity of communication and for your 3 and 5-year-old kids to be able to teach you something about communication is astounding, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember there's moments there when you'd just day-to-day communication with Oma would get a bit stressed when she had a bit of a hearing impairment as well, so you're trying to repeat an instruction, and a lot of caregivers would be very familiar with this. Once you repeat the same instruction 6-7 times, some days you can do that effortlessly and it just rolls off the tongue. You've got all the patience of a saint. Other days you're going to wake up and it's just called being human. You're not in the same frame of mind and you get stressed and it becomes a twitchy thing and your voice changes as you repeat the 7th or 8th time, as you would be well aware with kids too, But, we'd watch Artie repeat something over and over to Oma, and he would use this beautiful sense of touch. He'd hold her by the arm and then he'd grab her hand and he'd make sure he'd touch his chin so that she was watching his mouth and part lip reading. He knew all these cues to use automatically that we hadn't really thought about. Watching him back doing that, we're going, he's a good teacher. And he did. He taught us a lot about communicating with her. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what do you think the effects of having your grandmother live with you has been on the children?
Enormous, just so enormous. Just the compassion, patience, especially, and just respecting that she was the most important thing in the house, not necessarily me and my 5-year-oldness, which every 5-year-old goes through. Having to kind of take yourself down a little peg. And a lot of the time, especially as we were crawling out of those couple of lockdowns in the 2020 and 21, Artie would miss going to swimming lessons or miss going to soccer training because we just couldn't leave because of Oma, and we had to explain that, and he had to sit with that and accept that. So there was acceptance and patience and I think just love, like he just, and he adored her, and they had so much fun together, and just being
there
able
comes
to.
the playfulness again, right?
Yeah.
I mean, part of our coping mechanism as a family was through lockdowns. I don't know how you guys cope through lockdowns, but it seems if you could introduce some kind of play back into your home, it was a great coping strategy for just dealing with cabin fever and, all the restrictions at the time. And certainly that's, the way we discovered as a family, and with Oma in particular, it was the one thing we could instigate that made sense to the kids. It made sense to Oma, and it actually made us feel really good too when we just pretend to, set up a store at home and take Oma shopping at home when we couldn't take her out, or we'd do a clothes boutique. When, season change came, we had to get her some winter clothing. I went to Kmart and bought God knows how many, articles of clothing her size. But when you check out from those shops and you're not allowed to take the hangers with you?
Yeah, right.
I had to fight. It's like, I need the hangers. I need the hangers with the size and stuff, because I need to set it up at home again so it looks like a clothes shop. So
did they understand that?
They did. I took them back after, though.
Yeah, right, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Well, who wants 1,000 hangers?
Yeah, correct.
Really? Oh, man. Another aspect of the movie is the social media part of it. I mean, that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
To me, that's inviting a whole lot of stress that I wouldn't have. But it obviously, you got a massive impact from it from the Oma site on Facebook, right? Where's that now? And also, how was that navigating through that? Because there's that moment where I think you got a lot of projections hurled at you.
Yeah.
That must have been another layer of difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so after that Coles shopping video, that's when this video just kind of went viral and around the world. It was bizarre.
Yeah.
And you were doing all these news crosses and all sorts.
We set up a bedroom at home as a mobile broadcasting studio, because we were doing, Late Late Show with James Gordon and GMA and German shows, and it was just around the clock.
And this is all from that video.
From one little video.
Yeah.
But you had there was no pre-thought about this is what it could do.
Yeah, it was
I'll make
just
a viral video.
How do you do that?
How do you? Yeah, no one can just
Not
make
up to you.
It was just accidental, but the interest that came from that then helped build this community.
Because we thought, well, we could create a really meaningful conversation around this. If there's that many people that's interested in this particular viral video, maybe we could create some conversations and some awareness around living at home with someone, not necessarily in a pandemic, but just living at home with someone living with dementia or caring for someone living with dementia. And so then you created this Facebook page, and Oma's favourite food was applesauce, so that was kind of
very Dutch
where it came
favourite
from.
condiment to have with dinner.
And then it just kind of grew from there. So you just kept recording videos as you normally would, but curating them to pop onto this Facebook page, and it just kept feeding more and more people to be engaged in living with somebody who had dementia, and the amount of, I didn't have time to look at all the messages, but you just got hundreds and hundreds of messages just saying, my mum's going through this. I feel like I'm seen. I feel like I'm heard through seeing your experience.
Yeah, it was a beautiful validation, I think, for a lot of people around the world that didn't realise that there was a projection of their circumstance in another home in Australia.
Right.
But as you rightly pointed out, once you create that community, it's a beautiful community of goodwill. But along with that comes a new challenge, which is that community is constantly sharing every piece of content you put up. Yeah. And sometimes we weren't just sharing the happy clappy moments, we're also sharing some of the more challenging moments. In fact, we did one video about how we help manage Oma's falls. And, that got shared on Lad Bible, like a millennial social channel. It got 4 million views or something on Lad Bible. It's a 12-minute video about trying to protect someone from falling over at home. Yeah. So, we started sharing some of the more challenging stuff. One of those videos that got shared a lot by our own community was when Oma had come back from a hospital trip where her diet had changed. There was a lot less of Oma there when she came back home because she'd spent a night or two in hospital. And so her confidence had just degraded. It was an additional stress and a frustration, obviously, within the home, trying to get her to adjust again to home life. We made a video about that. That got shared lots, and then that came with trolling. Because for a lot of people, that was their entry point into our journey. They saw this difficult video. And as hard as that is to see your name associated with really hateful, hurtful, vitriolic hate sometimes, I think, we talked it out. we sat down because Megan had a very different take on that. I was very hurt. Megan was very like, don't even take it on. It made us realise that the community we create online in any space, in this case it was Facebook, it's a membrane, right? It's a two-way conversation.
Right, okay.
You might be projecting and putting things there, but you're also inviting people to react to that. And you've got to take that reaction and learn from it and understand how that story's imprinting on other people. So that inspired us to do a podcast after that. We started our own little podcast series to help have a longer format conversation with families living with dementia to sort of untangle some of the stuff we couldn't get out in a 3 or a 4 minute video.
Perfect.
And again, we learned that communicating is the way to work our way through that. And we still occasionally get people out there going like, you've taken advantage of your mum. You're really just trading or profiteering off her illness. We still get some of that. But in the end of the day, there's always going to be different opinions. And thankfully, that's not the greater common public opinion. We did what we did out of love. We documented it as a film because we felt it was a story that connected with a lot of people. And we didn't think there was many real stories out there about families living in that sort of a circumstance. And so, that made sharing our family story, be it on social, be it in a film in theatres, made it worthwhile.
It never felt for a second like you were doing it for any other reason than wanting to share the experience out of a place of love, because you put warts and all in there. You don't make it seem like you're these, even though you are quite heroic, I think, but that you put it all in there, and she's such an engaging character that you can't help but, of course, as you say, fall in love with her. And I think, my mum's been really ill. She's not, she doesn't have dementia or anything, and she's still living separately. But, it really moved me to just watch that and go, okay, the time spent with your elderly parents is never a waste of time.
No.
And it really reminded me of that, where I just, and if that's all if all anyone gets from that movie, I think that's genius that you've given that message across. So, I think it's beautiful what you've done and shared.
Thanks, Elle. Look, I think at the end of the day, life is busy for everyone, and we can all find a multitude of ways to fill our days. But, at some point we're going to reflect back on the moments that get lost. And when you're living with someone with dementia, you see that loss every single day. But regardless of that, our elders in our families, their time is limited, and whatever we can do to make space and make time to include them in what we're doing and to make them an ever-present part of our story, we're going to take something away from that. Our kids are going to take something away from that as well. And
they have a document to see it, which is, at what point did you decide to cut it into a movie?
I think once we had a lot of that initial media interest around the shorter stories we were putting on Facebook, we had a conversation one night with some filmmaking friends of ours from Newcastle, Gavin and Olivia. They run their own production company. We were having dinner and we talked about this idea of there being a longer story or a bigger story in this than just the little social media bites that people were experiencing. Yeah. And so it was from that conversation that we really explored the possibility of what would this look like if we made it a documentary. And we pulled on board a great producer from Melbourne, Ros Walker. She fell in love with the project straight away. She was also experiencing dementia in her family at that time. And then Gavin and Olivia came on board the project as editor and producer. And we were away. We managed to get our funding in place and get the movie started. So we didn't have many brick walls to getting the project up and away and getting it started. It was more a case of we were living the story while we're filming it and trying to navigate. So we were navigating our care journey with Oma, our own relationship journey as a family, and then trying to finish a feature film at the same time, which is a bit of a juggle.
Run a business.
Now that you're sort of a few years or a couple of years out, what is there anything that you would have done differently?
Yeah, we get asked this a lot, and I think it's definitely not. You definitely do it all again. Like, even though it's a bit like childbirth, like it's traumatic, but then you're like, oh yeah, I'd do that again and again. But we never really identified ourselves as carers, and it wasn't until just shortly before Oma moved into permanent care that we actually went, hang on, we're actual carers. Like, we're not just daughter-in-law and son anymore. And I think if we'd sort of done that a little bit earlier, we might have tried to ask for more help because we were pretty stubborn, and we definitely had all the health circle around Oma that needed to preserve her health and elevate her well-being, but we didn't look after ourselves as well as we possibly could have. And I think if we'd said, hey, we're a carer, we need help to be a better carer, that would have been something we changed.
I think it's almost a labelling thing, right? Because you identify as a son or a daughter to your parent. When you take on the hat of carer, it feels like you have to give up the son or the daughter thing. It feels like it's a kind of switch, and I think that's like it felt very much like that for us.
Why we resisted it? Yeah. I think
so. We waited too long, I think, until we sort of put our hand up and identified quite proudly as carers, and now we do a lot of advocacy work in that space. But I agree with Megs. I think it's understanding that it's okay to ask for help earlier. Okay. Everyone wants to be stoic and strong and do everything themselves. But comes a point you're going to wear yourself thin and wear the people around you thin, and your friends get worn thin as well. Yeah. So learning to it's one thing being generous in your own nature, but it's another thing to actually identify when you need some help and being unafraid about asking for that help.
It seemed, though, in the film that there was a moment where you did go out to ask for help and you really struggled to find it.
Yeah, enormously.
Has that changed now, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know if that was partly like a COVID kind of hangover.
Oh, okay.
Or Carers New South Wales had moved into like a national carer network, and they were struggling to figure out what they looked like. But we desperately needed respite care because we were just on a slippery slope, and because we were so exhausted already.
We were shift sleeping. We were doing shift sleeps 2 hours each, and then
that was insane.
Tagging. So
and you can
sustain that for a little while, and then it just implode.
How long did you sustain that for?
It was almost a week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I remember that image of you lying in bed with your iPhone sitting on a stand, and I was like, this. I don't know how they're doing this.
Yeah.
And that was fair income. I mean,
Yeah, and that became unsustainable. It was like, how long can our relationship last with that thing in our room?
Sleep deprivation is the worst. Yeah.
But I think the great thing is there are a lot more help resources out there now, like we're a couple of years down the track, as you said.
Yeah.
There are some great support services out there. There's a much bigger focus now on in-home care as well. So, the government's opened up more support with that. There's a lot more providers out there that are able to support that. And because we're out of, the horrible lockdown scenarios, which was keeping a lot of people from asking for help as well, we're in a different space now. So I think there are a lot more resources out there, and there's a lot more support. I think, which is great.
Yeah,
that is good, because there's, in the Westerners, we don't usually have our elders close with us. That's other cultures do that. It's automatic that the older generation live with us. Do you feel like, you've sort of mentioned that, is there more support that the government or, other charities or caregivers could give so that we could have more help at home, so that is more culturally accepted, so we would have more support?
Well, I think the thing that we did well, though, was that we had that extra little room or extra studio apartment that, our houses aren't even really set up to be able to have a loved one, an older loved one living with you.
Yeah, because there needs to be some separation.
There needs
to
be.
For them too.
Yeah. And to have their own independence and autonomy, And so from that regard, we were able to make that work. We had flexible working arrangements. We both run our own businesses. So, for someone commuting to Sydney every day or whatever, like there's another difficulty or another barrier there to be able to look after someone you love. But we've definitely seen, and maybe because our head's in it a little bit more, we've definitely seen there is this push, especially from organisations like Hammond Care, for you to stay at home. We'll have more resources. I feel like that these organisations are getting themselves geared because we know what's coming.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was saying
it's called
we were talking this morning.
The Grey Tsunami.
The Grey Tsunami.
Yeah, it's the aging population is called the Grey Tsunami. There's a tidal wave of age coming upon us, and
there's going to be more over 65-year-olds than there is under 18. So
we've seen it in Japan's already in that position. Wow. So this is globally going to be reflected everywhere. So we need to think, we need to think more inclusively as a society about how do we age more appropriately now at our current age bracket. How do we design our lives, our family lives, our working spaces, our communities, our villages, everything? How do we make that more age appropriate and more inclusive, because we're going to be in that position not too far away. We're going to be in that position where we need help for ourselves. So I think maybe, hopefully, sharing our story was just one small, tiny part of opening some more broader conversation around that. I think the more families can sit down and have a conversation about how would I want to age? What's important to me? What are my passions? What are my loves? What are the things that are important to me? And if I was to if I was to experience cognitive decline, if I was to suffer from dementia or something like that, how could I still make my life meaningful? What things would still be most important and visceral to my existence? And if we can have those little conversations as a couple, as a family, I think we build bridges towards that more inclusive sort of open family structure of care.
But we fight aging so much. Like you think of that conversation, it's like, oh, that's too morbid. Like why would I want to plan my my over 65s or my death? Because we try to fight aging wherever we possibly can, like by the way that we look or by the way that we're always eating foods that fight aging and putting creams on our face that fight aging. So it's, we're not really good at talking about it.
Well, culturally, we're not very good about talking about being sick or illness or death or any of that sort of stuff, but they're present things in our lives. And, more recently, Meg and I were talking about how do we, we tried to use the lens of dementia and our family as a teacher to say, what can we learn as a family about living with dementia and living together in this space? How can we use this as a positive experience, an empowering experience for us? And I think that the great thing to walk away from that is it's really, really easy to look at an illness like dementia and say, we're fighting dementia. We've got to try and turn the tide. And of course, medicine and research is working very, very hard. And we've got great organisations like Dementia Australia putting a lot of energy, a lot of research into trying to improve those outcomes. However, the reality is in our near future, we're not going to be able to make any great dramatic change in that space and those numbers. In fact, the rates of dementia in Australia are climbing all around the world exponentially. So we need to try and understand, how do we make in our families dementia a friendly thing too, if it's a part of how we're going to exit the world. And one way we sort of talked about this the other day is, how do we reframe it? If we were going to reframe it as a positive way, and one picture that I've got in my mind is, if we try and reframe the life we live now as meaningfully as we possibly can and as intentionally as we can, we get to experience it a second time around, because as you go through the steps of dementia, you start regressing back through your life again. And how beautiful would it be to think of yourself and say, look, if I'm preparing myself and investing in myself now and trying to give myself the best possible chance of living life well, I get to experience this moment in life again as I come back down through the ladder. And as I go back and regress back through my youth, I'll revisit all those memories and moments. So whatever we can do to build those memories and those moments in life in a strong possible way will pay us back in the future. If, most of us will end up getting this disease. So let's try and make life more appropriate. So when we come back down through that ladder, we experience it in a different way.
It's a big thought.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big thought. It's it's like Benjamin Button sort of idea, and yet I love the sentiment, and I think what you guys have achieved. So many things spinning in my head, but what you've achieved with the movie, it gives people certainly an entry point into how to care for the people that we love, and what a great example from the both of you, a son and a daughter-in-law who really, you could have been forgiven by just going, you know what, I ate too much, I'm out, I'm taking the little ones and we're going to go live somewhere else. And I'm sure that's a story that's been told as well, or lived out many, many times. But what a great example of the village, of taking care of the people that grew us, and nurtured us. Hats off to you as well for how you both kept it together, you know, and kept your marriage together. And are you good now? Now that you're
We
out
had a
of
tiny argument in the car coming in today. There
well,
was
they're
nothing
always
in the-
okay.
No, we're good. We're great.
No, we're great. We're great.
Yeah.
We're still a little hungover, I think, but we're getting there. Just kind of still navigating out of the last couple of years.
Yeah,
Well, we're trying to
But together.
figure out what our life is about again now, because
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
refocused our life so much into that journey with my mum that now we're at the other end and we're finding ourselves again. But there's something beautiful about that too, because it feels like a fresh start.
Yeah, and you had teamwork. So you had a project. You know, it seems like that. What's your project now? Do you have a collective project, the two of you, that you are doing, or
No, we
in
don't.
mind?
No, not really.
No, we don't at the moment.
Is
Any
the podcast still
suggestions?
going? Oh, you could do. I mean, just what you just referred to about working back through your life. There's something in there. There's absolutely something in there. And as a filmmaker, you know, wow. I mean, I hadn't even thought of that. That's really cool. It's a really amazing notion.
Because, Jason, you actually gave up your whole business to 24/7 care for your mum. Are you back in the business now?
We're starting things back up again.
Yeah.
So, but I think, you know, even now, having started up my day-to-day business of video production again, I'm really just looking towards people's stories to tell. I don't necessarily want to make commercials and, you know, stories about things and objects. It's more about people, and that they're the opportunities I want to really look at, is find someone with an interesting story and help them tell it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. I can connect you with some people who are on the same page.
Thanks, Cam.
Yeah, absolutely. We do a bit called the 2-minute shower, where we just keep the answers short, and we'll fire. Do you want to ask the first question?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your best quality?
Ooh. Creativity.
I think like just shepherding everyone, keeping them all together. Yeah.
An Australian sheepdog.
Yeah. Like, I'm working. Yeah, work hard to keep everyone together.
Okay, I'm probably not going to be surprised by your answers here, but what the world needs more of is
kindness.
Yeah, compassion.
What does your perfect day look like?
Wow, for me at the moment, I just love winter sun. Like just sitting out in a little chair after lunch, we have lunch together, and I find this little sliver of winter sun. Love that.
Me sitting down at Forries watching the kids. You next to me, book. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't put you next to me. That's okay.
Yeah,
and Megan next to me.
How big's the slither?
Yeah, can
I
you
made
share
you
the
lunch.
slither?
Yeah, I'm there. I've made you
Got
lunch.
it for about 10 minutes and then sun moves on. Damn you, son. What's the one moment you would like to revisit in your life?
God.
That's great. Well, we've got to be quick.
Like our first date.
can
I
edit.
love that
Don't
day.
We'll slip the scissors in here.
Yeah.
Our first date. I love that day.
First date? Yeah. I would
There's
love
nothing wrong with it. I just want to go back. It was fun.
Yeah, I'll concur with that. I think the same. I think I'd love to, re-experience that again too. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Last question. One word to describe each other.
Who's going to fire first?
No, there's too many.
I'm going to go selfless.
I'm going to
for
go
you.
kind. I already said it, but I'm going again. Kind.
Kind and selfless.
Selfless.
Beautiful.
Love it.
That's clear.
Everybody's Oma is the movie. Where can we see it? Aside from we saw it specially because we're special.
No, we just went to Stan.
Yeah, it's
Is
on
that where we
Stan.
went to?
Yeah, that's where we went to.
Oh, I had the link. I thought we were special.
No.
I still feel
You
special.
are absolutely
Stan's
special.
good. Thanks,
You've got the
mate.
special
did get
Stan
the
link.
I can rest
so yeah.
easy now.
If you want to catch a film, you can see it on Stan. And if you're flying anywhere on Qantas and Air
you're
New
in
Zealand, I think it
And
is,
Doc,
you can see it on
Doc Play.
You can see it online on Doc Play as well.
And if you're in jail in New South Wales, you can see it there
Apparently,
too.
you can screen it in jail.
Oh my God, that'd be. I mean,
It might soften some hardened criminals.
Let's hope so.
It might just do that.
oh mate, I reckon have major effect
Careful, Cam.
there. Major effect there. Yeah, no, all good. Megan and Jason, thank you so much for coming in. It's been such a pleasure to meet you. Again, thanks so much for sharing.
It's been
Thank
great
you for
fun.
having
Thank you.
us. Thanks for having us.
And there they go. That's Ali's favourite line from Hard Quiz. And there he goes.
There she goes.
There
he goes.
And there they go.
He says it the same every time.
I loved that chat.
Yeah.
Loved it. The documentary or the film, Everybody's Oma, is given that we're all heading in that direction, it's almost like compulsory viewing. I don't want to sound like a teacher, though, I think it's incredible.
It's a deeply moving documentary. And, as I said, it hit me in a place that's very sensitive right now because what I'm going through with my mum. And Oma reminds me of my mum.
Yeah, she's so joyous.
So sweet.
Isn't she?
So joyous, yeah. So, but it is something that, like I said, it's just a great reminder to check in on your parents, spend more time with them, and also check in with yourself. I love what Jason was talking about is, sort of that future-proofing of your elderly care, of yourself, how you create this life is if you are going to suffer from dementia is how you will relive that life. So make this life a ripper.
And I'm also thinking, my parents are not, my parents I feel like have made the necessary changes in their life to sort of work out and be comfortable for the next 20 or so years.
Yeah.
Some people don't have the foresight to do that, and suddenly it becomes too much. So yeah, like you say, future-proofing ourselves because our parents are all getting older, we're getting older, and as Jason said, that grey tsunami and
I didn't know that.
And I had never thought of that, but it makes sense. Boomers are known as boomers because they came from a baby boom, and so the boomers are getting older.
Right. Yeah. Are we boomers?
No, we're Gen Xers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just me.
I don't know where they're up to now.
I don't know either.
I lost it at millennials.
Yeah.
But yeah, that generational thing. Anyway, like the movie is lovely, and also another reason I think to check out the film is to see the example that Megan and Jason set for communication.
Right.
And how they talk with each other, and the kindness and the selflessness. That I don't know if I was thinking as I'm watching it, I don't know if I could do this, even for my mum. And I'm going, but you would, I probably would do it. But it's full on.
The level of patience.
Yeah. And at the end of the movie, I am left with some positivity around it, and there are great things to take away.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. That's so true. Thanks everyone for listening. Hope you enjoyed the chat as much as we did.
Catch up with you next week.